You claim to be a fan of physics in games. Yeah, me too. So why has no one covered what could be some of the best the world has ever seen? I'm talking about DMM, Digital Molecular Matter. It might not feature destruction on the scale of Red Faction Guerrilla's massive buildings, it might not be ray traced or AI driven or any of the other current buzzwords that we all love so much today. But it promised physics unlike any other within the world of gaming. What you're seeing here is some footage from the various early, low-res and now rather rare tech demo videos that showcased it. I've watched these countless times. They're seared into my brain. Oh, what I'd give to be able to play a game with stuff like this. Part of the reason Digital Molecular Matter is rather uncovered is because it only featured in 1.5 games, and these were console games first and foremost, with rather shoddy PC ports coming later. I'm referring to Star Wars Force Unleashed 1 and 2. It was also promised for an upcoming Indiana Jones game that was then cancelled. And then it was gone. Ceased to exist. Although DMM did then make its way to various movies and stuff, but who cares about that? That stuff's pre-calculated and pre-recorded. What made DMM so promising in games was the fact that you could control its destruction. Like I said, given the very advanced nature of this physics, it's crazy that barely anybody online is talking about the destruction in these games. It seems like everyone who played them just treated these games like games, reminiscing fondly about how much they enjoyed playing through them and stuff. The fools! They failed to notice the intricate glass warping physics, the flexing metal beams or the terry plant claw materials. So I can't say the prospect of booting up the first game in this series got me that excited. How wrong I was. Allow me to show you the first level. Holy mother, this is more like it. It might be a Star Wars game, but don't let that put you off, because this first level of Force Unleashed looks and plays like a tech demo for Digital Molecular Matter. All the plants shaking about from the shockwaves, trees breaking and splintering very convincingly, Wookiees standing on bouncy wooden bridges getting yeeted left, right and centre. Oh yeah! These character physics blended seamlessly with the other physics systems in this game. The developers complained so much about how difficult it was to get it all working properly, but it all paid off. And even when the rest of gaming has moved on so far, these systems stand up well even by today's standards. How has this game slipped past me for so many years? It's incredible! And a great taster of what's yet to come. The splintering wooden materials are the obvious standout feature that's lacking in other games. But I also really like the flexing metals. Metals are tough material, yeah? We can all agree on that. But to see it bounce and wobble very slightly after receiving a significant force just feels so right. It's what's been missing in every other game in existence. Even in Red Faction Guerrilla. We want bouncier metals, please. Come on other games, follow Force Unleashed's lead here. God, that's hard to say. It does feel like half this game's budget went into this first level with Vader just here. So if we move on to the next level, it's just a bland space experience with not much DMM to experience. But what we do still get are lovely doors that you can bend open with the Force, and these show up in various forms throughout the game. I'll just show you a few others here. You can get the weird spindly ones with gaps between the bits just here. And later on, you even get ones with glass inside, and as you warp the metal, the glass shatters out. It's gorgeous. Everything DMM related in Force Unleashed just feels a little bit rushed, with mere seconds between something being broken and it fading out of existence. And I'm going to blame the consoles at the time with their limited amounts of memory for this. I just wish I had some more time to dissect these windows before they disappeared. Clearly, DMM is capable of handling stuff like this. I didn't expect them to let you smash the outer windows of a space station, but here it's like a gameplay feature because it sucks anything nearby out of the airlock before then sealing itself up with a metal barrier again. I just feel like games have got a little bit lazy with this sort of stuff in more recent years. I think that games have got more and more complicated to make, and the developers don't deem these little touches worth the effort to implement anymore. And like I did touch upon earlier, the developers did say how challenging it was to combine DMM with the Havoc and Euphoria physics engines, which handle the physical collisions and character models, respectively. But look, it's clearly worth the effort because it makes The Force Unleashed still relevant 17 years after release, compared with all the other subpar games from the time that just don't have any outstanding features worth experiencing again today. Yes, I always felt like I was against the clock in this game. This room has some lovely glass interactions, but it's also full of toxic gas, so your time spent interacting with it in this room still feels rushed. This physics tech demo keeps getting interrupted by the game! Stop it! Let me enjoy my physics interactions in peace. Something you do get time to enjoy is the Euphoria physics, which is also the driving force between the fun character animations in the likes of GTA 4 and 5, allowing people to flop about like a ragdoll while still clinging on to things and retaining some degree of life to them. It allows you to blast characters all over the place, with longevity you don't get in other games, where once they do ragdoll, they're dead. Here it's still cutting edge. Look at how these stormtroopers finally get to profess their love for each other as they hold each other's hands as I fling them through the air. Crabs in a bucket.
Help me! Anybody! Help me!
Look at this one grabbing hold of something for dear life as I attempt to yeet him into the air. But again, this seems like another relevant tangent for me to show this metal blockade from later on in the game. This one here is a series of individual metal beams, all of which can be morphed and bent into each other. They all collide with each other quite convincingly, which makes me think there is possibly a way here that you could wrap them up into an impassable knot of some kind. But I couldn't get it to happen when I was playing. So yeah, this is another feature that every game should have. Force Unleashed's metal can sometimes be over-enthusiastically bendy and jelly-like, but it's still so much better than the static, artificial objects seen in every other game. We've gone backwards. Onto the junkyard level, which was always going to be the ugliest level, but Jesus Christ does it look bad here. It's almost like there's no lighting at all. Give this a ray-traced makeover and I reckon it could look lush. And it is fun to curb stomp all these little Vivi creatures all over the place. But enough of that, for we're here for the physics, and this level is full of stuff like that. You get a few mounds of metal debris, which feels quite chunky and satisfying, but all that is just driven by basic rigid body havoc physics, rather than the clever material physics that I'm looking for. These torn metal doors feel more satisfying than most in the game to bend open. It reminds me of how I get into my tins of baked beans, and this cracked metal surface is a joy to tear apart. Now in this entire game, the closest I ever got to getting stuck on a metal door was this one here, which was more stubborn than most were to bend open, and then once I was in it was like I couldn't get out again and had to force push something invisible out of the way to escape. Turns out you can just slash this apart with your lightsaber, which is very satisfying. More of these please. There's this massive glass window here, which the first time I played, self-destructed. But in later playthroughs, this gave me the chance to tear it apart, which was nice. And this metal lookout was a prime candidate for some bendy DMM metal, but it just swaps it out for a bunch of broken metal parts instead, which is very disappointing. In general, this scrapyard level had so much potential, yet most of it was squandered. There were these metal objects which can be dented and morphed about rather unconvincingly, like they're a large block of soft plastic or something like that. So it's not like DMM always enhances the realism, but there's something quite playful to it, something satisfying about objects like this that the polish in later games did away with. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, there was like this awesome physics tech crammed into some rather subpar Star Wars games. Let's just dive on into the cool examples. We'll start with level 4. And compared with earlier levels, which were very metallic and robotic in nature, this 4th level of The Force Unleashed is full of very natural looking elements featuring rubbery effects. The developers mentioned what a pain it was to implement all of these different physics systems together, and in this example I can totally understand why, where in parts, literally the entire place is made of rubbery bouncy stuff, which must play havoc with the Havoc physics engine and all of the pathfinding that the enemies have to do and stuff. It's the little things, like how these giant mushrooms don't just bounce about, but they also interact with this rubbery floor, instead of just lazily passing through it. It's how you can hit one thing which will hit another thing and cause that to bounce. So much effort and processing power has gone into this, which likely the intended player base of this game just blitzed past without ever noticing. But I notice, and it transforms these rather low quality, ancient levels into environments with their own apparent mass and weight. And thanks to all this effort that they put into this game, it still feels sort of cutting edge even by 2025 gaming standards. Especially with this hideous room where it's like snakes and ladders, where one wrong step sends you plummeting back to the start again. But it is funny when an enemy unintentionally hurls themselves off the side and goes tumbling to their doom, which all looks quite convincing thanks to the other physics system they implemented into the game known as Euphoria. That's the one that's seen in GTA 4 and 5, and hopefully 6 as well. The standout physics object was this weird plant lift, which demonstrates how awesome and fiddly it is to have an entire platform made of wibbly wobbly jelly material. And despite all that, enemies can still traverse it surprisingly well. I love these plants here too, where they're already quite wibbly, but attached to them are even wibblier little bits which go crazy when hit by my force push move. All these little plants everywhere kind of reminds me of those little physics features you find in the Dungeons of Elder Scrolls games, only here the elements are far bigger and rubberier. In this room, although poorly signalled to the player, are these large flippy pinball style tentacles which when electrocuted cause them to flick across the level, yeeting all enemies in their path. And in this example, slapping this large enemy across the arse rather harshly. So the developers definitely did try to make these physics features a core part of the experience in quite a few different experimental ways. In this level I found a few of these awesome claw things where once you pull the claw away, you're left with the fleshy base underneath which you can then hack apart. Sadly they last for like 2 seconds before fading out, and my attacks on them were often interrupted by locking onto nearby enemies who just seem to randomly spawn all over the place. The next level starts a treat, with you surrounded by these beautiful glass panels. Sadly, the room is full of poison gas, but once that's disabled, I could then take my time to break these at my own pace, and I had a smashing time. If you're still asking what's so special about this glass, for me it's how the broken chunks still have some degree of elasticity, malleability and plasticity to them, which can result in further destruction, and that's what makes the physics in this game so special to me. These aren't just physics objects, they're physics objects that are all connected to each other convincingly. The following room I'm greeted to yet more smashable airlock windows which do a good job of sucking the enemies off for me. And shortly after that high point, a low point, which I think nicely shows what's wrong with the combat in this game and just how infuriating the timings and getting knocked down can be. Fortunately, this level was incredibly short, and the next had a bunch of cool new stuff to experience. I welcome these little people who are perfect for tossing about and for showcasing the bendy railing effects in this game. Yes, every railing in this level is bendable. About half the PS3's RAM is probably going on this effect, so you'd better appreciate it. This moment here was particularly magical to me, where a collision caused a railing to wobble but not really to deform. Almost like the physics are always active on these things, but put up considerable resistance to impacts. I bet people felt the same way when video games first supported decals that didn't just fade away. This big dangling chain thing glitched out, going mental and vibrating about all over the place. Now with DMM it was apparently a problem if chunks of the stuff travelled too far away from the source, so they had to be correctly cordoned off and such to prevent game crashes. But this here I suspect is just basic physics all attached to each other, though still cool for such an irrelevant object to feature this degree of physics. These pipes were also great, breaking open and spewing their contents about. Really, I think a lot of the time I found the bending in this game to be more impressive than the breaking. I didn't even mind having to replay a segment of this game just because I used the guy I was supposed to protect as a projectile. I do love to play with an interactive nozzle that has foamy stuff shooting out of the end, especially when the hose itself feels rather stiff, like you can twist it into weird angles and it'll remain in that state for a while. And again it serves a gameplay purpose because you can use this jet to freeze enemies. Again combining the physics in this game into the gameplay experience. It's hard to tell because the game is so janky to interact with, but it does feel like the frozen bodies of enemies will break apart where they're sliced with a lightsaber. This being a family-friendly game, I imagine they wouldn't want it looking too visceral. Until the sequel, where they're fine with you slicing enemies in half and stuff. And this one sees the return of many of the breakable features first seen in the intro chapter of this game, when you're controlling Darth Vader. And it also throws in some incredibly large and bendy trees into the mix. These things put even the giant mushrooms from earlier in the game to shame with their bulk and wobbliness. You bet the trees on this planet experienced an unprecedented amount of boulder abuse at the hands of Starkiller, which I have to say is a name that's growing on me. These trees are wonderfully unnecessary, and the developers often put several of them close together, allowing you to wibble a huge number of branches about in one fell swoop, all colliding with each other and bouncing off each other extremely convincingly. If trees are made of rubber, which they might be on this planet. There are also tree stumps you can strip the bark from, which I'd like a lot more if they were interactive with my lightsaber, but I guess you can't have everything, even if you are called Starkiller. The game presents huge doors, which even your force push isn't powerful enough to bend. But fortunately the huge boulders in this level can, and it made me feel truly powerful to lob these mothers at these mother effing doors. This one I deliberately opened the wrong way because I'm a bad boy. There's this room full of artifacts which I'm sure must have been created as a physics showcase of some sort.